Okay. The reading today is a responsive reading, and it's in the Gray Hymnal in the way back, number 648. But we have only begun to love the earth. We have only begun to imagine the fullness of life. How can we desire so much is in love? How can desire fail? We have only begun to imagine justice and mercy. Only begun to envision how it might be to live as citizens with trees and flowers, not as oppressors. Surely our river cannot already be hastening into the sea of non-being. Surely it cannot drag in silt all that is innocent. Not yet. Not yet. There is too much broken that must be mended. Too much hurt that we have done to each other that might not yet be forgiven. We have only begun to know the power that is in us if we would join our solitudes in the communion of struggle. So much is unfolding that must be researched. So much is in love.
For those who don't know me, I moved to Durango some 23 years ago from Cleveland, Ohio, and was a member of Har Shalom Synagogue for a number of years. Ultimately, I became uncomfortable with the vehemence of some of its congregants in their support of Israel's military occupation of Gaza. My problem was not with Har Shalom or Judaism, but with Israel and the Israeli occupation. I was born in 1943 into a Reformed Jewish family in Detroit, Michigan, where we attended a Jewish temple with which my family had been involved since the middle 1800s. Although I consider myself a cultural Jew, I am not certain that I was ever very religious. We celebrated most of the holidays, but to me, they were more about family gatherings than the celebration of a holiday. As a kid, during the celebration of Hanukkah, the Jewish festive lights, which lasts for 8 nights and usually overlaps Christmas Eve, my father, who was in the retail business, would bring home a decorative Hanukkah bush to add to our holiday celebration. Today I'm going to talk about the complicated history of the hexagram as a decorative motif, mystical symbol, and as the Star of David, which is inscribed on the first window on the south side to my left of the UU sanctuary as a symbol of Judaism. When Lisa first approached me about this talk, my knowledge of the Star of David was limited to what little I had absorbed as a child, and of that, the little bit that I still remembered. It was just something that was there, a part of Jewish life as I grew up, but I had no real sense of the history or religious significance of the symbol. When Lisa approached me, I was reluctant, but with a little pressure. Okay, a lot of pressure from Lisa. I agreed to go forward with the project, and as it has turned out, it has been a most interesting journey. I must warn you, however, that some years ago, when I tried my hand at theater and was attempting to read a script, I was told that I sounded like a lawyer reading a brief. I fear that at the tender age of 82, I probably haven't improved. The Star of David, or in Hebrew, Magen David, which literally means the shield of David, is a hexagram with 2 equilateral triangles, one inverted and superimposed over the other. While in our time the Star of David is generally associated with Judaism, it was never a uniquely Jewish religious symbol. Like the menorah, a symbol of the seven-armed candelabra used in temporary tabernacles as the Jews wandered for 40 days and nights in the desert. Or the shofar, a hollowed-out ram's horn used to call Jews to worship or to battle. Perhaps you remember Joshua and the Battle of Jericho. The use of the hexagram predates Judaism and was a symbol found in various cultures, religions, and civilizations, often as a decorative motif or a magical, mystical symbol. The hexagram, or in Islam, the pentagon, first came to be known as the Seal of Solomon, and later in Judaism, it became known as the Star of David, and in Hinduism as a Shatkona, which represented the divine union of masculine and feminine energies. Later in Buddhism, the two connected triangles were used as an aid to meditation, where they represented a sense of balance or equilibrium. The oldest example of a hexagram used as an architectural detail was found on a non-Jewish Egyptian temple some 2,000 years ago. Ever since the symbol has graced Indian temples, ancient churches and synagogues, and even a 5th century BC Shinto temple. The hexagram, or was it a pentagram, first came to be known as the Seal of Solomon in medieval Islamic mythology and among the Kabbalists, a sect of Jewish mystics that date back several thousand years. The term referred to a signet ring or seal that was possessed by King Solomon and was said to give him the power to command the supernatural and the ability to speak to animals. The Star of David, or in Hebrew, Magen David, which actually meant the shield of David, apparently was a derivation of the Seal of Solomon. It referred back to King David, the father of King Solomon. David was a lowly shepherd who, during the battle with the Philistines, slew the giant Goliath with his sling. Due to his courage and military prowess, he later became the king of Judah and ultimately of all the Israelites. Among medieval Jewish mystics, the star, or more likely the shield of David, probably referred metaphorically to Abraham's covenant with God and the protection that God had promised to Abraham and his descendants. While there is little evidence to suggest that the term Star of David was actually used at the time of David, medieval Jewish mystics assumed that the symbol, the star or the shield of David, had mystical powers. It is not clear how Magen David, the shield of David, came to be known as the Star of David, but there have been some suggestions that David had a shield with a hexagram on it. As far as I can tell, David with his sling had neither shield nor star when he killed Goliath. Probably did later in his military pursuits. While the hexagram showed up from time to time in Jewish life as a decorative motif, it may not have been known as the Star of David or particularly identified with Judaism until the Middle Ages, when the Kabbalist mystics began looking at the star as a mystical or magical symbol in their attempts to achieve a direct connection with God. As with the Seal of Solomon, the shield or Star of David was thought to have magical powers that offered protection against evil spirits. From the Middle Ages, the adoption of the star spread slowly with the many migrations of the Jewish people. In 1512, the first Hebrew prayer book was printed in Prague with a large hexagram on its cover. On the book's colophon, that is the publisher's imprint, was written, each man beneath his flag according to the house of their fathers, and he will merit to bestow a bountiful gift on anyone who grasps the shield of David. Notice the reference to the shield of David as opposed to the Star of David. The association of Star of David as a distinctive Jewish symbol probably dates back to 17th century Prague, when the Jews were granted the right to bear a flag on which appeared the Star of David. In the 1650s, the Jews of Vienna adopted the seal of David, likely borrowing it from the Jews of Prague. Later, when a boundary was established between the city of Vienna and the Jewish ghetto, the Star of David was used to distinguish Jews from Christians. In 1669, when the Jews were expelled from Vienna, the refugees took the symbol of the Star of David with them to the many communities to which they migrated. Much later, in 1897, the Star of David came to be identified with the Zionist movement when it was adopted by the First Zionist Congress. Zionism is a Jewish national political movement whose goal was the creation of a Jewish national state in Palestine. The flag in blue and white was the Star of David. The flag was inspired by the Talith, or prayer shawl, with which Jews wrap themselves during prayer. At this point, if you will allow me to digress, I would like to make a critical point relating to something that is all too prevalent in the political misinformation of the day. I mentioned that Zionism is a political movement. It is not a religious movement. This is a serious distinction in light of the damage caused politically by the conflation of Zionism and Judaism, and anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism. For me and many Jews today, the term Zionism is used to refer to the state of Israel and its genocidal actions in Gaza and in the West Bank, not to the Jewish religion or the Jewish people. If the Star of David wasn't already universally recognized as a symbol of Judaism, the universality of the symbol was firmly established when the graves of fallen soldiers during the First World War were marked with the Star of David to distinguish them from Christian graves that bore an image of the cross. Later, during the Holocaust from 1933 through 1945, the Nazis used a yellow Star of David with the word Judah, the German word for Jew, to identify Jews. And if a Jew in the Third Reich, not already in a concentration camp, or a Jew in the Protectorate of Bohemia and Moravia, which is now Budapest, was found not to be wearing the Judah emblem, they would have been severely punished. In October of 1948, 5 months after the establishment of the State of Israel by the United Nations, the flag that had been adopted by the First Zionist Congress in 1897 became the flag of the State of Israel. In contemporary use, the Star of David is universally associated with Judaism and appears on or in the many synagogues and temples of Orthodox, conservative, and Reform Jewish congregations throughout the world, and as the emblem inscribed on the first window on the south side of the UU Sanctuary in Durango. Thank you.